Hello? Alô? Hello, povo! E aí, mano? Firmeza? Tudo na paz? Eu vou ligar meu play pra carregar o celular. Só para isso. Chegou a musa do canal. Fala, menor! E aí, galera, como é que vocês estão? Tudo em ordem? Só fui embolado aqui. Pera aí. Pô, quem tá no hype aí pra nova season? Fazia tempo que eu não ficava assim, né? A galera fala assim, ah, o Win sempre fala isso, mas não é sempre eu falo isso. Eu sempre falo que a próxima season tem potencial pra ser a melhor season. Potencial todas têm, elas só não são. Mas eu fiquei muito empolgado com o que a gente viu no trailer. Em todos os trailers. Boa tarde, boa noite, quem estiver em outro país ou em outro estado mental. Quem tá aí? E aí, William? Firmeza, mano? O William tá sempre ajudando no meu canal. Quer dizer que o Winchester só compra PS5 pra fazer carregador. Esse menino tá chique. Você viu, Lucas? Pô, aqui nós é top. E... é porque o PC não pega, mano. Não carrega meu celular. E a Bruna vive sumindo com os meus carregadores. Rampage vai voltar pro chão? Vai nada. Ela tá no drop ainda. Mas ela teve buff. Saulo Gustavo, ó o Saulo aí. Tamo junto, mano. Camacildo, quem mais tá na live com nós? Twitch, Anubis. Pão com manteiga. Eu amassava agora. Tem dois Williams aqui. O William BMX e o William Will Gonçalves. Tamo junto. Kraken, Psycho. Psycho também é outro. Tamo junto. Cadê o Pix pra doar, hein? Não. As skins do passe estão uma maravilha. Tão mesmo, né, cara? Pô, eu não vi o trailer do passe de batalha dessa season ainda. Você acredita, cara? Eu fiz vídeo pra vocês e não vi o trailer de passe de batalha. Tá, pera aí. Cadê do Pepex? Deixa eu dar uma olhadinha, dá tempo? Pô, dá tempo? 5 minutos? Deixa eu tirar essa bossa nova daqui. Dá tempo, rapidão. Pera aí. Eu não vou botar em 4K porque senão a gente não vai ver. Vai travar a live. Pô, eu queria ver as skins lendárias da Catalyst, mano. Pera aí, mano, pera aí. Pô, tá barulho feio que faz. Alternator. Tá bonito esse skin da Alternator. Oh, pera aí. Ah, não, achei que o Alternator tava com Drop Around também. Olha esse skin do Revenant, mano.
Embrace the darkness with the legendary Obsidian Night Havoc. And control the cosmos with the Laser Eviscerator and Cosmic Cannon charge rifles. Beauty is pain.
Pô, charge rifle de arma evolutiva é de doer, né, mano?
You can guess the rest. Enhance your favorite Legends enchanting looks with matching weapons, holo sprays, and emotes. I love field
Mas
work.
isso cedo ou tarde ia acontecer, né, cara? Não tem como
Make a
fugir.
statement as you enter the ring with new skydive emotes.
Olha o emote dela, que fudido.
Let's see you work your magic.
Squat up, dive in, and bewitch your enemies with
Foda.
the Eclipse Battle Pass.
Who am I? The kind of witch you don't mess with.
Massa. Falta um minuto. Pô, eles podiam fazer esse treino no YouTube, né, mano? Mais fácil. Será que eles vão? Havek na 2x, coisa de louco. Não curto, cara. Sabia? Eu não curto, mano. Prefiro a 1x. Eu, sinceramente, acho que ser main Mirage às vezes é motivo de bullying. Já aconteceu comigo. É nada, mano. Boa tarde. A Prowler vai ter adaptador pra rajado, ou seja, vai ficar automática? Não vai, mano. Até onde eu sei, não. Não tava nos patch notes. E aí, Jackson? Firmeza, mano? Ô, Jackson. Tiraram muitos pop-ups. Tiraram. Leandro, obrigado, mano. Tamo junto. Ó. Vamos começar. Depois do anúncio.
Comemore o Halloween. Estarei morto de inveja de você.
Pô, vocês já ouviram o Sabra Cadabra do Black Sabbath? Fudido, hein?
Seu jeito. Boa sorte.
Lendárias, né? Se você não conhece essas três... Eita! Começou. Como é que tá de volume aí, galera? Botar no máximo. Aí vocês falam pra mim como é que tá. Deixa eu ver como é que tá o meu OBS também no volume. É, tá no máximo. Som. Ah, som, pau no cu. É, a Twitch desanima mesmo. Uma configuração aqui. Alto não. 1080p cravado. Envoy Receiver para a 301 Flatline. E além disso, a 301 é a versão Gold nessa season, cara. Tô até achando que eu vou voltar a jogar de loba. Galera, se o áudio estiver mais ou menos aí, vocês falam, cara. Broken Moon.
I'll kick it off because this is so the map is called Broken Moon. Is that what it is?
Yes.
So can you tell us just a little bit about like the lore behind the map and you know how it came to be?
Sure. Back after season 8.
Eduardo Agostini.
Our designer on Mayhem.
Não faço
started
ideia de que
working
fala, estou
on
fazendo um
the
pouco
next
da lore
map. We pitched
do mapa.
a few ideas. We started playing with the idea of a moon.
Não custa ter um
and
microfone decente, né?
snowballed.
Ih, olha lá, ó.
We knew in season
Gameplay.
10 Fear was coming, and there was this whole story about his prophecy. And it just started, all pieces started coming together. We always imagined, like, what is it that, you know, we knew that the moon got hit and it affected Boreas, but what would the aftermath be? well, how did they live with that? So the moon here represents all the work that's been
Pô, que
going
desgraça
on
essa
since
porra da
the Earth
Twitch,
was
cara.
born. So it's about 26 years in the making. That, you know, a lunar expedition was sent to the moon to survey all the damage. They knew there was a lot of work to be done, but before they could bring people to the moon to fix things, they needed to make it habitable. So they brought science departments up here to create a terraformer, an atmosphere station. So you can see the pink sky, like an artificial atmosphere that was created. And this colony was formed called the Colony of Hope, and it's on the moon Clio. Workers were able to start coming here, and we've got the promenade, which you can see across from the terraformer, this big giant wall.
É um resumo do que aconteceu para a terraforma ter forma. O que os efeitos que o meteoro trouxe para Clio, que é a Lua. E essa tal dessa colônia é a colaboração da Catalyst, da Tressa, com outros envolvidos no projeto de recuperar a Lua. Mas aí, igual eu falou, o Eduardo Silva, o pai do Octane, foi lá e trouxe os jogos pra lá, entendeu? Só que eles não gostaram muito, porque eles estavam numa recuperação X e mudou completamente. Eu conversei com esse cara semana passada, mano. Eu cheguei a comentar em vídeo. You know, there's this like spiraling water underneath here that further helps. Margot, a Big Sister ou nem? Sim, ela é, mano. Gameplay, we think this is actually going to be a pretty highly contested. Skybox tá linda, de verdade. Central in the map. It's not too big, but it does support like we'd say about 2 to 3 teams kind of comfortably. And from here you can really kind of see and get a little bit of a lay of the land in terms of like land marking. So if you're like up top, you can actually get, this is like the sweet spot. You can actually get up here. But it's kind of hard to stay up here for too long. You can get like right on the edge. Oh, really? We don't want you going too high up, but you can get on the edge so you can get a good view. And you can kind of see there's like that big wall, that big blue and white wall in the distance. That's the promenade. So we can go over there later. But then you can start looking around and you can see other landmarks over the rocks and over in the horizon. Like to the south, there's one of the Atmos stations. You have another Atmos station northeast, and then there's a few other POIs you can kind of see peeking over the horizon through here. But you can see the terraformer has these like, there's these arms that link up to é bem preview, né? É bem preview.
Through the map, and these are really good points to defend when people are trying to come up. So we find that the terraformer is this like kind of king of the hill sort of situation, but you can't really defend it all from one spot. You kind of have to spread out a little bit. You can slide down these arms, it's really fun.
Tá falando que a região de terraformer vai ser tipo um ponto de vantagem muito grande, cara. Mas tudo depende pro colapso do anel também, né? Um ótimo lugar pra tu cair, se tu quer drop hot, tá ligado? Brigar e, enfim, sair dali com algumas kills interessante.
Yeah, and then this is just another way back up to the top. There's a vertical zip line here. Yeah, and then all 3 arms are kind of similar, and that's just kind of the loop. And then you can, the other thing
o loot parece tá bem abundante pra essa região. Além de, poxa, tá muito bonito, mano. Mas além de estar bonito, cara, esse tom, tem alguma coisa que é muito familiar nesse mapa que eu não gosto. Ele mata um pouco o fator de novidade. Tem coisas nesse mapa, me traz uma sensação que não é total novo, entendeu? E eu não gosto disso. Eu não gosto disso. Por outro lado, eu acho que todos os mapas apresentam um quê, né? Porque assim, a parte de instalação do Apex é muito chata. É muito chata. Por exemplo, essas casinhas. São as mesmas casas de Olympus com uma cor diferente por fora, mais ou menos, entendeu? Eu tô gritando, né? Mas dane-se. Estreia amanhã, mano. Mapa novo. You'll see some astronaut suits here back when they were having to explore the moon é vida.
Before the atmosphere
de fato.
Created. So yeah, throughout you'll see a few of these camps, and they're really fun little areas to explore. Yeah, so those are all, they're kind of like these these pieces that we put together to make a bunch of different variations of those buildings. So it's like a style that you need to get used to and learn. But they're all over the map, and they all play. Some of them play really similarly because they're the same configurations, but other ones are in different configurations. So we're coming up to the Promenade. This is a really popular POI because it is sort of this really centralized choke point, and a lot of traffic flows through here. So
que da hora.
Ways up into the Promenade. There's ramps on the sides, but you can also take these.
Não, massa, curti demais, curti demais.
Of Clio would find their basic supplies.
Porra,
like
isso aí é de bater palma com bumbum.
Survive up here. This is where they get their everyday goods as they live upstairs in the apartments.
Yeah, you can see, continuing on theme, this one also has a unique zip rail about it, so you can kind of zip above the action.
O foda, mano, puta que pariu. Sabe o que vai ser? Você tá tretando aí, devia ser um pouco mais alto, porque imagina você tá brigando, tu quer carregar com o quadrado, ele pega a zipline e te manda pro caralho. Você fala, não! Você quer pegar kill. E o cara já manda você pra Narnia. Léo, obrigado, mano, tamo junto. Obrigado pelo apoio. Zip com motor de Ferrari, porra.
Yeah, so we find ourselves a lot of the times in playtesting, the big question arises, do we go through the promenade or do we go around it? Because going through the promenade, if there's a team in there, it's like it's a pretty good choice you have to make. Like, can you squeeze through, or are you gonna?
Ó, que lindo. Filho, essa parte aí no PS5 isso aí vai ser lindo, né?
Over here, there's two pathways you can take to underneath it just to try to avoid some of the action, but kind of put your back at risk.
É, aí vai ser complicado. Acho que aí vai.
You really have to watch.
Tem uma coisinha legal.
Where else should we go, Ed? I guess we could go to the core. That's another major POI.
So we can go through some of these houses.
Oh yeah, for sure. We can go to these houses here. But yeah, Ed, why don't you talk about these buildings?
Sure. So these are, I guess, government signed housing for the workers. They're quite swanky. I guess they got to make it worthwhile for them to come all the way to the moon to give up their lives on Boreas.
Se não tivesse esse corrimão, ia facilitar algumas coisinhas. Tá lindo. O side building. Galera, não é minha live que tá nessa qualidade, viu? Com pouco bitrate. É os caras mesmo.
Yeah, so from a gameplay standpoint, these buildings, I think there's two different ones. There's like a smaller one and a bigger one. But these buildings are pretty common, and these are like destination points we use a lot for the zip rails. So you'll see over here, I'll show you something that's kind of cool about these. Yeah, so this is the other variation. It's a little larger. These are really, really fun to defend because they have these like posts here, these kind of post up points on the edges here where you can kind of just watch down the line, watch down the zip rail line to make sure another team isn't trying to run up on you. One of the fun things about this is actually just if you come in it on a zip rail.
5.000 conto pra alugar aquela casa ali, você viu, mano? Casa de luxo, cara.
In through those doors, and so when you're coming into a good point, we find ourselves doing that all the time, and you kind of like when the door is closed, you just slide in and like crash through the door. It's a really good feeling. So I think we'll head to the core next. That's another major POI. These bridges, also very, very popular positions for fighting.
Também curti, Hazel, o design de interior.
The core is basically the energy source for the moon. They built this to power all of their various scientific endeavors. We see little yellow power stations throughout. It's kind of where they distribute some of that energy that they stored. So you'll find them throughout the map, but this is where all the power is generated.
Oh, que bonito, cara.
Alien plants as well.
Was there anything that kind of inspired you guys with the style of art here, or the visual style that you wanted to go with for this map?
Well, I've mentioned this in a few interviews. So one of the strongest themes was heaven and hell, right? We've done other themes like fire and ice and tropical kind of settings, but for this one, we were going to be on a barren moon, and we wanted to contrast that with the lush terraformed areas. So heaven and hell was kind of the.
Pô, eu queria ver os easter eggs desse mapa, mano. Deve ter alguma coisa interessante aí. Pô, essa Fanta tá enchendo o saco desse anúncio, cara.
Monet paintings, like that soft pastel sky, and you'll see Bionomics later has these giant lily pads and really lush flowers.
O meu hype, não sei, mas o meu hype pro God of War Ragnarok está maior para a temporada 15. É o meu também, não dá nem pra comparar. A gente tem temporada nova a cada 3 meses, cara. Pô, God of War é um masterpiece. Inclusive, fique de olho no nosso canal. Se você não é inscrito, se inscreva agora, porque a partir de semana que vem, na verdade, a partir desse fim de semana, vai começar o nosso esquenta Ragnarok. A gente vai fazer live no PS5 jogando o clássico God of War de 2018. Não tão clássico, né? Mas o God of War de 2018 vocês entenderam. E vai ser lindo, vai ser maravilhoso. Cobertura completa do God of War Ragnarok. Nossa, eu vou platinar esse jogo. Acho que vai ser o primeiro jogo que eu vou platinar na vida. O FPS me toma muito tempo, cara. Pelo menos não dá dano, né? Igual aquela região rachada de fragmento. Aliás, na região de fragmento. Every direction, and these things are rotating. You don't really know where people can come from. So we find like people defend a lot of these arms and kind of hold up in here. These are pretty tricky spots to get people out of. The other thing that's really unique about this point of interest is the fan below here. So you'll see this, like, essa parte acho que todo mundo já viu, né? Diversas vezes em vários trailers. Acho que vocês podem passar para outro. To escape, to enter, you know, you can use it to just kind of like rotate around the POI if you want, but it does put you at a disadvantage, and you are a bit of a sitting duck. So similar mechanic to what you guys might have seen on World's dos geysers, pode crer. This one doesn't damage you, and so you'll see that this mechanic across the map in a few spots. This blue glow. Anytime you see a spot like that, that'll actually lift you in the air. So we put those in spots where we, like, naturally it would kind of be a death pit. Like Ghost Viper, tamo junto, mano. Obrigado, cara. So we put this sort of like safety net in. So it's sort of a Você acha que vai ser a próxima arma do jogo? Puta, não faço ideia, mano. So it's roughly the size of World's Edge. Eu tô ralado pra pegar as Views Armor. Você tá falando no God of War normal ou no Ragnarok? Game of 60 and people are just ripping around on the zip rails that it actually feels kind of tight and a little quick. So the zip rails were like one of our ideas. Imagina faltar um tiro pra você matar o cara e sair vazado nessa zip, E atrás, né? You're looking for action. This is one of the levers you can use to kind of close distances and stuff like that. So this is a launch pad. It'll take you up to a zip rail so you can grab it. There's a couple of those. You can see on your mini map, it looks sort of like a buckle or like a rectangle with a dot. Those are all the pads that take you on the rails. And the rails are identified by the red line. The red lines? I was going to say, there's no balloons in this map, kind of like Storm Point? There's one balloon. Yeah, there's one balloon right now. Tem balão. Tem uma jump tower só nesse mapa. Confirmado. Which we'll go to next. Cool. We'll head this way to stasis. Well, everyone's at Alpha Base. Should we just look at Alpha Base? Oh, yeah, I guess we should. Yeah, so you can take that zip rail into Alpha Base there below. So this is basically the Eles vão para Alpha Base agora. Landed on the moon. It's a giant crater. This is where they set up their first camp. It's the largest lunar camp. Pô, o foda assim, você pode tomar muito dano, né, cara? Yeah, so it's kind of like a figure 8 POI. There's a good like figure 8 loop going through it, and this is sort of what we call like a town POI. So it's a bit smaller. It doesn't support. And it's just a good place to rumble, to be honest. Vocês viram essa mudança aí na zipline? Ou foi só eu que vi? You can do through these buildings and just kind of rip through them in a. Ou já tem isso no game atual e eu nunca prestei atenção. These as well, obviously, and these are good. Really good positions to just kind of sit up and get a lay of the land when you're on top of these buildings. So you can climb all these buildings like all the way. Yeah, a big thing for us is verticality and making sure that if it looks like somewhere you can go, that you can go there. Yeah, so this is one of the longer lines in the game for the zip rails. And it connects all the way from Tira o mapa, corno. Stasis.
How fast do these things go compared to zip lines?
Will you tell me how? Do they feel faster?
Much faster, they seem.
It's hard to get my head around.
It feels like they accelerate.
They do.
Yeah, so they take your basically like inertia and momentum into account. So like if it's going up or down, if you're climbing up, it'll slow down, and if you're going downhill, it'll speed up. But it eventually maxes out.
Here we're approaching the stasis net in what we call the failed forest. So the idea is that the terraformer, you'll see like a radius of what's been terraformed from that central building, and parts of the map didn't really take. And this is one of those areas that didn't quite take. So it's a bit of a creepier forest. And the stasis net is one of the first,
Será que dá pra dar super jump na nova zip?
Acho
que dá, mas acho que tu perde um pouco de momentum, mas eu acho que dá sim, mano. Não sei.
Crashing into Boreas as well as crashing back onto the moon. So that's that grid you see up there. If anything were to happen to that, big damage happening.
This is one of my favorite POIs on the map. I really like it.
Esse lugar tá bonito.
Sort of like a good way to contest the area. You can, so if we head towards the dish here, you can see that you can actually
chique, mano.
This thing, and so it gives you like a nice 360 spot, but you don't have a lot of cover up there. There's a little bit, but we find a lot of teams they'll kind of sit up there and they'll get into some pokey fights with other teams trying to enter the area. So from up here, you have a pretty good view at some of the chokes coming into the area, like the one over there. To the east, you can see that special choke there.
Cara, esse mapa ele aparentemente é grandinho. E parece que todas as POI são dignas de drop, tá ligado? Tipo, não vai faltar espaço. Por exemplo, a gente vai pra área do vulcão. Vulcão não, né? Por exemplo, a região da lava que tem aquele domo em World's Edge, lá só ranqueada, mano. Ou quando fecha pra lá, entendeu? Porque no casual ninguém cai ali. É longe de tudo. Muito vibe de zona de tormenta. Nossa, aí você vai me desculpar, cara, mas não tem nada a ver com zona de tormenta. Nada a ver, mano. Aí foi besteira. Tu tem gigante referência de Olympus e World's Edge, mas zona de tormenta, nem o tamanho dele se compara, cara. Até a promessa de jogo é diferente, porque, como eu falei agora há pouco das POI, tá ligado? Lugar foda. Se fosse comparar, tipo assim, o que ele mais se aproxima de todos os outros mapas, pra mim é o Olympus. Ah, esse é a zipline aí, essa é a zipline. Nossa, que foda! Parece a minha igreja. Que da hora, mano. Ah, é uma zipline curta, cara. É um balão curto, na verdade. Ou ele tá andando igual um mongo.
So gorgeous. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of the first ones we actually tackled. It kind of represents that heavenly side.
Yeah,
Which who designed the little sculptures though, like the little these little animal sculptures that in the.
So Aaron, one of our concept artists, did a great job with those. I think we did 4 or 5 of them. Maybe one of them didn't make the cut.
Os caras falaram que ele é pouca coisa maior que o World's Edge, tá ligado?
We made it so that you can get underneath them and
que, no entanto, isso em gameplay não vai ser tão perceptível ao ponto de Storm Point, porque efeito dos POIs serem maiores. Só que assim, eles criam um ponto, mano, já pra sacrificar, ou 1 ou 2, 3 de um mapa, por causa das Town Takeover, tá ligado? Por exemplo, aí tá da hora e tal, mas é capaz que daqui, sei lá, 3, 4 temporadas isso aí não exista mais, seja uma Town Takeover.
And the vibe we were going for with this POI was that this town was once connected. It was once, it probably had a main street down the middle. And then just to show the kind of fragility of the moon, it got split in half. These bridges have been set up to kind of almost hold the pieces together, but then that explains why we see the blue glow and the updraft happening there. So it's one of my favorite POIs. I think it's going to create
Morre pra eu ver. Cai.
Kind of side to side, middle building to middle building.
O que acontece se cair com só um squad vivo? Crash o game?
Kind of thing.
Yeah, we find a lot of the times you'll have just one team on either side, and then they're trying to sort of figure out how to cross the gap.
Pô, isso aí já tinha no lance do Pathfinder,
If
mano?
they use abilities, or if they just run across the bridge. Or
E aí,
if they use
funcionário,
somebody else to go
firmeza?
around
Seu
from the
gay?
side. So there's a lot of interesting things and interesting ways you can kind of attack.
Was that like your intent when you were designing a lot of these POIs, like to potentially have them like have double usage? Like it's in the BR, but it's also
A
potentially
pior
useful in
tal é
the
a
future?
Doctane, ô louco,
Yeah,
mano.
we think about that. It's in the back of our mind.
Quer nesse Canyon, você
consistently,
flutua
but
ou morre.
one
Eu
of
acho
the
que
things
morre,
that
ele não
we
quis pagar pra
just
ver.
make sure is like, you know, if we look at this, it's like, yes, maybe this could work for gun run or something like that, but we make sure that it works for the BR first and foremost. The way this town is laid out, this is just like a really classic kind of level design, you know, technique, which is just like.
Ele tá falando que assim, o mapa pode ser interessante para outros modos, e ele citou o Gun Run, só que quando eles vão desenvolver um mapa novo, o core de desenvolvimento é o Battle Royale. Primeiramente e primariamente, o Battle Royale. Ah, tu não morre! Da hora! Tu não morre, cara, que legal! Cai de novo.
Waterfall?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think it was just supposed to like evaporate.
Ah,
right?
cai de novo.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's supposed to flow upwards.
So it's kind of the water's kind of getting pushed up by the energy there. So that's just a cool little thing.
Ô, ele é bonitão,
And
né,
the
mano?
surrounding biome, you know, we were kind of going for white meadows,
Aquele outro
so a lot of white
developer
kind
lá.
of lavender flowers. We called it the cloud.
Pra mim, a
forest.
pior town é a da
Obviously, big
Lifeline,
white
mas pela
mushrooms
localização,
and
na
then
real. Concordo com
cliffs
você.
themselves.
Concordo com
Just trying to
você.
separate the
A Cioli.
various POIs so they don't all have, you know, I think we have more than 4 or 5 biomes on this map. Slight variations.
A localização dela é muito
Flowers and
bosta,
color
daquela
were
town
way to
takeover.
get that variety for us. And we're in Bionomics now, which is probably the one that's closest inspired to like a Monet painting. It's what I was giving as reference for the
O
ponds
POI,
and
ou
the
melhor,
paths, beautiful,
POI, significa ponto de
Yeah, so
interesse,
you'll
que
see
são
we
cidades,
have some of
etc.
these circular
Sim.
buildings here now.
Deixa
There's a few of
mais
these across
rápido.
the map, but the
Não
most
sei,
prominent
será que tem
here
modificação?
in Bionomics and in another point of interest called cultivation. And they're just really fun. They have a good circuit just around the outside of them, and then there's a
A
good
zica
core
que
to
vai fazer
them
tá
where
mais
you can sit
rápido.
and defend. You can also get on the rooftops and use those to defend. They're actually
Não
really
prestei atenção.
strong
Eu vi que
defensible
tinha um
positions,
cursor.
just sort of sitting in the donut.
Olha que da hora.
Donut.
É uns ovos ali?
Pretty hard to weed teams out of there. Big landmark for this one, so you know you're in Bionomics.
Tem ovo?
Obviously,
Tem-
it's like the water,
é ovo.
lily pads and everything, but there's a
Tem uns
huge,
ovos.
Pink
Ô, de ovo eu entendo, hein?
kind of in the center. It's a little trenchy, I'd say. That's kind of like part of this point of interest is
Queria ver os
trenchy.
ovos.
These open spaces you need to cross. Has
Volta nos
these,
ovos, quero ver os ovos.
Wooden these roots that are these arches, so you can kind of use them
Ô,
as
mano, olha que bonita essa parte, a parte da
to protect yourself
flora.
from above. And then there's a bunch of little secret tunnels and stuff like that in between the bridges and things like that you'll have to find. But lots of paths in and out. And this is one of those points of interest that connect directly back to Terraformer. So you can see on the map there, there's a choke that
Quero ver
leads
os
directly
ovos.
back to Terraformer.
Just from a lens, so like, you know, obviously you're thinking.
Caralho, funcionário, 25 meses assinando o canal, tamo junto, mano.
From like a playstyle standpoint, and you're thinking about Final Circles, how much like of the design is influenced by thought of how it's going to be used in competitive or how it might be used in,
Valeu, funcionário,
you know,
tamo
high
junto.
level ranked, and you know, can we keep this because that'll be too strong? Does that
Tinha que
kind
ter a
of
opção de
stuff
trocar
you
de
have to deal
herança
with, and
minha,
if so,
ganhei na
like,
época,
how
ela
have you
vinha
dealt with
aleatório,
it
não dá pra
on this map?
escolher.
Yeah, that's all part.
É,
of
eu não sei porque que eu
balancing
tenho a
for
herança da
sure.
Rave também, não jogo com ela.
You know, sometimes we
Ó, vamos ver,
have a theory
vamos ver.
on what's going
Se
to
tá
be
mais
really
rápido
strong
mesmo.
and what we think is going to be really strong, and we test it against, you know, that in situations where we
Não,
actually play
não
test
achei
it.
não.
We find, you
Achei
know,
que tá normal.
It's pretty hard to tell exactly how it's going to shake out, but once it gets in the live environment,
Tá na
within, like,
cara
the
que
first
tem um pé de
game,
jaca
the community
ali.
has tested it probably 1,000 times the amount that we will,
Right.
just because of the
Conversa
sheer volume.
estranha.
We
Mano
always
de
look
ovos.
for
Ô,
points
louco,
that are
cara.
like, too strong
Ovos
or that are really
graúdos.
powerful. Like, I can give you guys an example over here with something that we had to
Vai falar
set
que tu não
balance
curte
out.
um ovo graúdo, Charlie.
So we made these rounder
A
buildings,
gema.
and they have this kind of
Molinha.
So this
Tu
is
prefere a
like one of
gemadura.
the strongest defensive positions that we find that we've created in this area. So you can sort of sit on the lip.
Eu prefiro a
you can go over the
gemadura.
lip, and yeah, and so one of the things that was making this sort of more
A gemadura e a clara
was,
bem
actually the
lisinha.
grass on top. So the
Maravilha.
grass on top was really high and really visible, and so that was one of the
Hoje
things
sai
where
os
we were
patch
just
notes,
like,
já saiu, já fiz vídeo já. Você deve estar atrasado ou você deve ter trabalhado muito, funcionário.
So that
Vou acreditar na segunda
thing and also
opção.
hide in the grass.
Já saiu os
But we
patch notes,
find, you know,
mano.
like if you have a team in here that's defending it,
Os pés de P.
you know, it's a
Viu,
strong, it's
pé de
definitely a
P.
strong position, but there's many of these, so you can have a bunch of teams kind of hold up in each one, poking at each other and stuff like that. But you know, eventually you're gonna have to
Cara.
come out of your.
Tem umas áreas que eu falei assim, pô, muito meh, muito X outros mapas, mas tem outras áreas que eles mostraram agora nesse finalzinho que eu curti demais, eu gostei bastante. Tem ovo, mas cadê os bichos? Será que é dos Leviatão ou é de uma outra criatura? Ou ovos de Prowlers? Os Prowlers vêm dos ovos também, não sei.
It's a good vertical POI. This is probably one of our tallest.
É o carro da
POIs,
rua
I'd say.
passando no seu ovo.
Really easy to land at. When you're landing, most people land up here.
Carro da rua passando no seu ovo.
Really good.
Da hora.
Defensible position up here. You have really good height advantage. And really good places to defend if you're into sniping. If you get overrun, you can kind of go back to the center here and sort of bunker yourselves in here, but there are 4 ways in and there's vertical zips, so you have to kind of be mindful of that as well.
Você viu, William? Tamo
Vertical
junto.
zips, these will take you down to the bottom. They should also give you a good view of
Você sai do
the,
quinto ano, meu
exterior
quinto ano não sai de
vertical zips
você,
in
é
the
verdade.
front as well, so you can kind of tell if someone's trying to go
Tem hora que a quinta série bate de uma forma agressiva.
At the bottom, going back to the top, and vice versa. So it is pretty hard to get a team out of there, but there's lots of options to get out of there. You can go from the back. There's rails that take you pretty close from the back.
Acho que eles vão mostrar todas
There's lots of zip lines taking you
as
out
regiões,
there.
isso é ótimo.
And their abilities, as well can kind of get people out of there.
Eu acho que os ovos de galinha é gigantesco, gigante mesmo. Ô louco, mas que porra de galinha é essa?
Some height cover, you know, so you can get in these shipping containers and kind of protect your head from snipers above and stuff like that. Good periphery. These bridges right here, these 2 bridges are unique to the Atmos stations, so these are really fun to fight in. There's some good windows, ways in and out. You can also get on top of the bridge, and then there's these panels here too that you can use to climb up onto the bridge.
This is cultivation.
Yeah. So this is the sister POI to Bionomics. It's a little smaller than Bionomics. But this is definitely one of the sweatier points of interest on the map as well. A lot of people like to land here. Ed, do you want to talk a bit about cultivation?
Yeah, this is basically where they.
Eu cheguei a mostrar em março o gameplay desse lugar pra vocês, cara. Mas não tava assim, porque leaks, vazamentos.
You'll see that they've got these craters that they've turned into sources for some of their, kind of wrapped them up in tarps and filled it with water and used it to kind of farm, because the moon didn't really have a water source at the beginning, so this is kind of where they started. You'll see some crops.
Será que o Jeff é o vulto?
They probably bring these to the promenade to
Eu já não sei, mano.
Kind of got a greenhouse vibe to it. A lot of foliage and vegetation growing.
E a
on
lenda,
the
vamos
walls.
colocar aí a alinhação? Pode crer, né?
It's like our moon farm POI. So you can see inside there's like these UV lights and stuff.
Boa observação, gostaria de ver a lenda nova em ação.
Plants growing, lots of plants, lots of harvesting, things like that.
Não resistiu, né, filho? Você não vai brigar com ninguém aí, mas você não resistiu pegar o colete roxo, né?
Stuff again, it's like really these donut buildings, getting holed up in these donut buildings and trying to control them. But say the difference to this one is that there's a bit more sort of elevation around the perimeter in some spots. So when you're sitting in these buildings, there's a few spots where people can stand to sort of see you a lot more.
Quando começa a próxima season? Amanhã, e eu quero ver você aqui comigo em live. Senhor Player West. Que mapa lindo, quero pegar muitos ovos nele. Vários ovos, graúdos, de gema dura e clara lisa.
It's one of the POIs that kind of connects Catalyst to the moon the most. So the foundry is where they are processing ferrofluid. This is actually extracted from the geology of the moon itself.
As zips vão te deixar um pouco mais vulneráveis, né, mano? Apesar delas serem mais rápidas do que uma zipline convencional, não é muito mais rápida. Não, é muito mais rápida sim. Mas tu não deixa de estar à mercê de ser alvejado.
And in the back of the foundry, you'll see that they've got this tractor beam on a giant asteroid. And so this is what they do is they kind of grab a rock, drag it into the upper area of the foundry, and then they crush it and create and get to the
Temporada nova só
mineral
amanhã,
vein.
galera,
But this is
meio-dia.
where I think, you know, Catalyst
Quero ver
governed
vocês
her
todos
fluid
aqui comigo
and
na live
figured
amanhã,
out how
hein?
to harness it for herself.
You can also defend the foundry from the upper
E aí?
platform.
Ô, que isso?
But you can defend from this edge here. So again,
Não,
they're, like, highly
ô, rapaz,
exposed
volta lá, cara.
but highly defendable. You get a lot of good sight lines for people coming
Volta
in.
lá no
But
buraco.
once you get shot, there's really nowhere to go. You just kind of have to
Ô, o cara é
escape.
chato, mano.
And although the
that's the
surrounding
defensive
area
Será que tem um
is a
portal
little
e
more
te manda pra um outro lugar? Igual o
the
Olympus?
POI itself is quite colorful with the
Ô,
greens
mano,
and
volta
blues.
lá, velho. Eu queria
So
tanto
we tried
ver.
to make sure that the POIs had a lot of
Pô,
color.
Eduardo, tu é
The
BR, mano. Eu nunca
biome
te pedi
itself
nada.
is a bit
Volta
more
lá.
barren. Smaller yellow buildings, you'll see that they say worker station. These are scattered throughout the map as well.
Volta lá,
It's just like a
mano.
common area for people to like get supplies, or it's a break room,
Os caras mó
something
relaxados.
like that. You'll see those throughout. So the next three are
Vou estar na
actually
escola
all kind
meio-dia,
of
pois
tied
falte.
together. At some point, you know, the work on the moon was maybe slowing down. People were getting a little disappointed with the progress.
Que diabeira
so
aquilo é? Eu
the
queria ver,
government
mano.
had to figure out other ways to infuse money and effort. So they allowed private industry to set up shop on the moon. And we
Ô,
have
galera,
a group
desculpa
called
essas
Community
propaganda aí,
Group,
velho. Nada a
and
ver.
They set up a shipbreaking operation. And so
O que houve? Não entendi nada.
Landing zone way at the back.
Acho que minha live
The
deu uma
landing zone
caidinha.
way back here has some pretty solid loot. What's really interesting about this one is like when you're contesting this one, a lot of the times what I do is if I see a squad going to the back here.
Não, ele não é
I see those
BR não,
buildings
mano.
right
Falei
next to
zoando.
it.
Aliás,
So,
não
yeah,
sei, acho
so
que não.
If a team lands there, right?
Dá uma
you can
olhadinha
kinda
no
sit up
LinkedIn.
here and
Depois eu vou dar uma olhada.
You know, and like kind of hold them back there from a more dominant position. So sometimes that's what I'll do is if I see someone landing back there, I won't go for the direct contest and I'll actually land at these buildings. I think that's it. You can see like in the front too, there's a lot of like, there's a land bridge out front there. It gives you some good over under. The zip rails all kind of head that way as well.
And again, even though it's more of our barren look, we added some strong pops of this rusty red that kind of fills in pools and has affected some of the vegetation. So it's just bringing in some more color as well in here.
We'll head on to Dry Gulch. We'll just keep going north towards Dry Gulch. Dry Gulch is another point of interest in this same kind of industrial family. I'd say in terms of just the team and the dev team, this is probably
Ele é
one of the more
canadense,
popular
pô.
POIs. I'd
Não
say it's
sabia.
probably the most popular POI, especially in terms of like the members of the team that are really skilled at the game. This point of interest is really interesting, especially this spot right here. It's another kind of cyclical donut, carousel type shaped point of interest. That you can loop around. There's a zip line
Telando,
that cuts
seja
through,
bem-vindo,
that's super
mano. Você
fun.
perdeu umas coisas
It's like
interessantes sim, mano. Mas o que você mais
absolute
perdeu, que você
favorite
devia
ones.
ficar
So a lot of
chateado é
people,
sobre
you'll
os
find a lot of
ovos.
landing here.
Nós tava
Some
falando.
good
Nós tava
loot
falando de
in the
ovos,
center. Dry
graúdos,
Gulch is kinda like,
de
that's
gema
like the main
amarela e clara
building,
lisa.
and then there's sort of like a sub building over here. So this one kind of, you know, you can contest it, but it sort of divides teams up into two.
Live amanhã
most of the
começa
time,
que horas, Win? Acho que
where one team
meio-dia.
will get the good building over there, and the other one will get this one.
Na verdade, já vai ter uma live rolando hoje, né? O Esquenta. Vai estar rolando muita coisa aí até amanhã.
Get on top of these as well. There's a few of these buildings in the game. I think we just call them our warehouse buildings. I can't really remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what people like about this one is how asymmetrical it is compared to some of our other POIs on the map. That's a draw to people that are really skilled. They seem to like this one for that reason. So this POI is the one furthest from, obviously, the terraformer. It's the very edge of the map. So this is probably the most alien, barren-looking section of the map. You'll see a lot of this kind of red mushroom, fungus, creepy tendril thing all over the place. We've also got pools of blue, oily liquid around with some kind of, some of the grass has kind of turned purpley blue as well, as if it's been leaking into the vegetation. And then the POI itself is this very strong orange to help pop it from the terrain.
Claramente o main path é o dev, só grapple de qualidade, você
This is
viu?
where they bring the ships to break down and send it through the chain.
Are there loot ticks on the map? I feel like I hear one.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So-
All right. I wasn't going crazy.
Yeah, we brought back the loot ticks from King's Canyon as our loot mechanism for this map.
They're all over the place when you're running around. You'll hear them squeaking and calling to you. Yeah, this map or this POI is very much sort of like a I don't know if many of you played the original Halo, but this one
I was gonna say
when our designer built it, I was like, this is very much like that Halo map with the two ships.
Yeah.
É, eles pegaram referência do Halo original aí.
Boarding action.
players.
Yeah, I was trying to get the name. Boarding action.
Legal,
Yeah, so
legal,
it's kinda
achei
like
legal.
that, but it doesn't play like that.
Meu cu
It
está
just
doendo.
reminds me of that in spirit, I guess. But yeah, there's a bridge in the middle you can use to cross.
Será que o
There's a
loot
zip
nesse
rail,
mapa vai ser
so
melhor?
when you have
Provavelmente.
two
Ah,
teams
isso que eu
on
queria
either side, you
ver.
can use like a
Ah, maravilha.
zip rail
Tu não
in the
morre.
center to cross and
Você
make
só-
make a quick push. So when you're setting up, when you're trying to get
Legal.
a defensive setup,
Uma coisa a menos pra
it's
você morrer.
obviously to sort of keep an eye on that bridge, keep an eye on that zip rail, because when you take the zip rail across, it is really sheltered. So
Da
you
hora.
sort of have to stand like right in front of it to get the most hits. If you're trying to do it from the side, they're gonna get onto your platform. Yeah, and then there's just lots of ways up, lots of little landing pads and stuff like that that you can land at. I usually land at the back, way at the back of this POI. I'd say it's probably one of the safer POIs to land at because it is quite edge.
Já tem um pré-download,
It's
queria
sort of-
chegar pra
I'd say it's
amanhã só
probably the
jogar, não sei,
furthest
mano.
away as well. And so it just brings that good balance that if you are looking for a
Sei
safe
mesmo
point
não.
of interest to land at, this is one of them. And there's a couple of sneaky climbs that you might find running around it. Yeah, it looks like a few people already found them, but you can get on top of this as well. And so again, if there's like no cover up here other than just the edges and trying to hide yourself, you can get sniped from a bunch of different angles around. So it's not the strongest position.
Olha.
Yeah, again, there's no cover up here. So
Tu viu?
once you get shot, you pretty much have to jump off. I think that wraps up the tour. I think the only one we didn't go to was the backup Atmo, but you'll see if you look at both of those points of interest, they're very similar. So they are pretty
Esse
similar
local
to each
tá com
other,
cara de
similar
futura
building,
Town
similar
Takeover.
kind of layout as well.
Now we're moving on to Daz's questions. First question is,
How did
the
zip
idea of
rails
zip
come
rails
around about?
This was an idea we were kicking around for a long time. Originally, it was an idea that was thought about for Olympus, I think, but we cut that pretty quickly because we didn't really like where it was heading. So we dug it up again because it was
Tá, a pergunta foi feita assim, tipo, como que surgiu a ideia das ziplines aqui, pra essas ziplines, do mapa. E ele falou que era uma ideia que eles tinham desde Olympus, só que não deu fit com o mapa. Tipo, o mapa não comportou bem a ideia. E eu consigo... Cara, imagina esses lugares, especialmente ali no... Entre propriedades e... Puta, como é que eu vou explicar? Esqueci o nome daquele lugar. Você consegue imaginar essas ziplines realmente no mapa de Olympus? Tipo, eu acho que não ficaria de tudo ruim. Mas eles decidiram descartar, talvez por uma ideia de um mapa futuro. Então isso vem sendo desenvolvido desde Olympus. Tipo...
Awesome. All right, next question is, what are the major design goals for Broken Moon?
Yeah, so continuing with that
Design principal. Aí eu acho que já vai de muitas referências de vários developers, né? Olha que lugar lindo. Mas dá medo, mano. Você tá brigando e daqui a pouco vem um squad na zipline, tu toma uma enrabada ferrada e fala, pô...
We really wanted to think about like, well, what was a way that we could actually change your trajectory or change the way you're moving towards the ring quickly. And so that's
o bom é que caindo não dá cano.
And we wanted to give people opportunities to not consistently have to rely on Valk in terms of like quick rotations and getting your squad out of harm's way. So zip rails was like another opportunity for that. So you know, you might not always have to have Valk in your composition.
Olha que lugar foda.
Cool. And then next up
A filosofia dos hot drop e as third parties. Como que vai ser o hot drop? Tipo, a ideia, o conceito de hot drop pra cá e third parties. Como que eles vão lidar com as mecânicas novas?
But they get unhealthy when there's too many people dogpiling, because what that ends up doing.
Ele falou uma coisa que agora que é óbvio, né? Que assim, geralmente se torna saudável porque tem pouco POI, mas esses POIs são grandes, esses pontos de interesse são grandes, mas pode ficar complicado. Assim, mano, é uma questão orgânica do Apex, dá pra se dizer, tá ligado? A questão das third parties, enfim, vai ter, mano, vai ter. Caindo não dá cano, não tô entendendo essa piadinha.
Less like contestable spots, more contestable spots right out of the gate, but it makes it sort of that the POI. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. With the larger POIs, you basically have time to get like your footing. So when you land, there are these hot spots where you can land to get the best.
Tem um balão, João. Tem um balão que o cara pegou. E parece que é bem no meio do mapa.
You know, do you want to engage in this fight or do you want to get away? And we found that with that, like, not as many people dogpile all on the same POI because there is more space to share across the map. So we thought that was a pretty effective change.
O bom é que caindo não dá cano, win como em confins do mundo. Puta, mano, eu não tô entendendo. Vamos mudar de assunto. Eu sei que deve ter uma malícia aí por trás, como sempre, tem coisas por trás. Volta nos ovos, quero ver o ovo. Passou do lado do ovo.
Is there a way that you can actually defend against that? So balloons, you know, a balloon gives you free range, 360-degree control over how you want to drop on someone.
Dano de damage, você fala? Entendi, mano.
We find that the points are a little bit more fixed.
Entendi,
so you kind of have an idea of where people are coming from. So it's a similar philosophy.
Entendi, dano de damage. Entendi.
Or the cannons in tropics that launch you on sort of a fixed trajectory.
Vai falar damage, pô, não fala dano.
Finally, how would you say that rotation feels on this map?
Como é a rotação deste mapa?
Feels good. There's a lot of opportunity for large macro rotations with the zip rails, and then a lot of the.
Ele falou que é boa, que tem muita oportunidade de transição. E tem mesmo, porque puta, é um mapa só de zipline. Isso aí pode ficar complicado. Esse mapa, ele foi bem desenvolvido com uma ideia interessante. Mas isso pode ser um presente de grego tão foda e virar de uma forma por causa dessas ziplines. Desculpa, por causa dessas ziplines. Thanks for watching. Acabou. Acho que acabou. A chapa esquentou, mas até agora não vi nenhum omelete. Caralho. Um showcase da horinha. Os caras mostrou o mapa inteiro. Podia mostrar uma surpresa, né, no finalzinho. Acabou? Ah, acabou. Pô, eles podiam mostrar mais coisas, né? E aí, o que vocês acharam? Vamos conversar agora, trocar uma ideia. Vocês curtiram? Só achei mal feito, feito as coxas, ô louco, cara. De graça. Gameplay da nova personagem é o que tá faltando. Ah, teve trailer dela, mano. Teve trailer dela, né? Vamos pro YouTube. Eles podiam colocar o overview aqui, né? Será que vai dar pra rever depois? Vou pagar pra ver, não. E aí, foi mal. Foi mal, mas você perdeu tudo. Absolutamente tudo, cara. É, a Big Sister, a gente vai ter role dela, mano. Tipo... Eu não sei se podia falar isso, mas assim, o que vai acontecer até onde eu sei, tipo... Pega o Fuse quando o Fuse foi lançado. Aliás, volta na Horizon. Quando a Horizon foi lançada, depois de um ano, eles lançaram a Ashe. Que dá certinho, porque cada temporada tem 3 meses. Um ano são 4 temporadas. Temporada 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Então, depois de um ano. O Fuse, mesma coisa. O Fuse foi lançado na temporada 8, na temporada 12 foi a Meg. Também depois de um ano. A Bangalore teve o Jackson na temporada 13. A Vantage como uma lenda, tipo, sem lore, sem nada. É capaz que no ano que vem a Big Sister seja lançada como uma lenda nova, tá ligado? Ela é de uma lore muito grande. A lore dela é muito grande. Tem no mínimo 3 personagens envolvidos com a lore dela. E isso é o que dá pra falar no momento. Que dó do Inshu, cara. Ele vai sofrer muito com... Oxi. Focando. Não tem como rever? Não sei se dá pra gente rever. Vamos tentar aqui. Quer ver? Acho que não. Não sei se ficou gravado. Ah, não. Ficou gravado. Dá pra ver sim. Dá pra ver, dá pra ver. Pô, a maionese da Heinz é foda, né, cara? Não é por nada não, mas puta maionese boa. Vocês gostam de maionese? Passar maionese no ovo? É. Oh, o pão com ovo. Eu vou fazer isso. Ovo frito com pão e maionese. E queijo. Nossa, faltava o queijo, vixe.
Have come here as well to increase funding because it's very expensive to try to fix the moon. Kind of all segued into what's happening now, which is the Apex Games have arrived. Someone struck a deal with Eduardo Silva in exchange for funding to help save their planet. They allowed the games to come on the moon and become the next arena.
We can just talk about this POI really quick. So this is the terraformer. This is what Ed was talking
Só
about.
não gosto de
how they were
mostarda.
starting to terraform the moon. So this is the actual
Carne assada
POI
fica
that is
top.
doing the
Pô, que tipo de carne assada? Tu
There's,
fala
Stuff
churrasco?
coming out of the top, it's generating an atmosphere.
Toda live do Win acaba com papo de comida. É incrível.
You know, there's this like spiraling water underneath here that further helps kind of sell that idea. And when it comes to gameplay, we think this is actually going to be a pretty highly contested POI. It is fairly central in the map. It's not too big.
Não vou fechar a live agora não.
Like we'd say about 2 to 3 teams kind of comfortably. And from here you can really kind of see and get
Cabeça de um animal corneado, eu vi também. Vamos ter uma semana só do mapa novo? Cara, eu acho que é 3 dias. Não sei se é uma semana inteira. Por mim, poderia ser uma semana inteira, que aí todo mundo aprendia a jogar um mapa, né?
Oh, really?
We don't want you going too high up, but you can get on the edge so you can get a good view.
Qualquer uma com pão com maionese fica fino. Pô, demais, cara. Ô, me deu uma vontade de comer um pão agora com ovo. Agora eu vou poder ver os ovos, é verdade.
over the
Vou dar
rock
pausa nos ovos.
horizon. Like to the south, there's one of the Atmos stations. You have another Atmos station northeast, and then there's a few other POIs you can kind of see peeking over the horizon through here. But you can see the terraformer has these like there's these arms that link up to different directions, sort of like different cardinal directions you can head through the map. And these are really good points to defend when people are trying to come up. So we find that the terraformer is this like kind of king of the hill sort of situation, but you can't really defend it all from one spot. You kind of have to spread out a little bit. You can slide down these arms. This is really fun. You can slide down the interior of the arms as well. And then there's just like, yeah, these interior spots with the legs. You can see, like, to Ed's point, we're trying to sell the story through artwork as well. So this, like, there's a lot of posters and little visual storytelling pieces across the map that you'll see. Yeah, and then this is just another way back up to the top.
Pô, queria ver a parte da...
Yeah, and then all three arms are kind of similar, and that's just kind of the loop. And then you can, the other thing...
Do balão de novo,
that's
cara.
unique about this POI is there's an exterior zip rail that just sort of like wings you around the perimeter of it. So you can use that to kind of rotate around a little quicker and get from one leg to the other.
Fun fact, the terraformer is named Bertha because it's Project Rebirth was the name of the project. One of our artists desperately wants to call this the flush because of the swirling water at the bottom. But yeah.
Bit of a toilet bowl down there.
Yeah.
But it's fun. You'll find if you're trying to control the top, you'll kind of like jump down into the water below to try to escape or get away. That happens a lot. Actually, we could probably just go through one of these. These are our lunar. Well, Ed, do you want to talk about these?
Yeah. So this represents the CRC and the NAB. So we got the Clio Recovery Council and the National Alliance of Boreas. They were the ones that kind of co-funded this mission to the moon.
O balão fica em campo aberto, acho que
These
sim.
were the first kind of astronauts that came to survey the damage. They set up these camps. You'll see some astronaut suits here back when they were having to explore the moon.
Funcionário, foi mal, tô falando com você, o seu mal educado. Responde ele.
Throughout you'll see a few of these camps.
Ele é latino, o nome é muito PTBR. Também acho. Tem que ver no liquidinho, mano. Da onde que ele é.
These pieces that we put together to make a bunch of different variations.
Mas também não sei se é interessante isso aí. Pô.
It's like a style that you need to get.
Só uma curiosidade, não sei.
And learn, but they're all over the map and they all play. Some of them play really similarly because they're the same configurations, but other ones are in different configurations. So we're coming up to the Promenade. This is a really popular POI because it is sort of this
a very popular
this really
POI.
centralized choke point and a lot of
Essa
traffic
temporada
flows
se você
through
jogar
here.
com a nova personagem, 20 bombas será?
So
Ah,
there's
mano.
a few ways up
Eu pego bomba
into
com
the
toda a
Promenade.
lenda, cara.
There's
Então
ramps on the sides where
tem
you
que
can
ver
see
como que ela vai vir.
ziplines.
And this is where the people of Clio,
Se ela vier é legal, mas eu acho que ela vai vir legal. Não sei, mano.
Like their general stores,
É que agora eu tô com interesse de jogar com
pharmacies,
algumas outras lendas. Pô, eu queria muito jogar com a
their-
Lifeline, continuar jogando
where
com
they
ela,
get
que eu tô
their,
me amarrando de jogar com ela. Até falei que foi mal ontem.
as they live upstairs.
A Lobo, eu queria muito
You can see, continuing on theme, this
terminar
one
as
also
kills
has
com
a
ela.
unique
Falta
zip rail above it,
1.300
so you
kills
can
pra eu
zip
pegar
through the
10 mil
action,
kills com a
take you
Loba.
through these doors that
Queria
you
jogar um
can't
pouco
get
de
on
Revenant
everywhere
também, faz
unless
tempo que eu não
you're like,
jogo.
you know,
Faz,
someone like
nossa,
Pathfinder, where he can-
2 anos que eu
he
não
can
jogo com ele
grapple to the,
direto.
to the zip rail and you know other legends that can get the height, but there's certain starting points for this zip rail as well. Entrances and exits, you know, a bunch of different ways in and out, so it's really
Cadê o
good
buff
for,
da
this area is
Lifeline?
really
Você é
good for
doente, cara? Pra que
defensive
buff, mano?
legends.
Que a
And there's
menina já tá
some
quebrada pra
of these kind
caramba.
of narrow hallways around as well that prove for really good flanks just to push through these doors.
A galera pede buff pra umas lendas que não precisa, mano.
A lot of the times in playtesting, the big question arises: do we go through the promenade or do we go
A
around?
Lifeline, mano, ela tinha que ser nerfada a tática dela.
Team in there, it's like it's a pretty
Porque
good choice
quando
you
tu
have to make.
roda
Can
a
you
tática,
squeeze through, or are you gonna-
o drone
are you
fica
gonna
em
actually
efeito,
have to
mas o
fight
cooldown
someone?
tá
There's
decrescendo,
kind of a
o
sneaking
tempo de
route
cooldown.
as well.
Tá ligado? Então, no final das contas, ela não tem 45 segundos de cooldown. Chega a ser tipo, sei lá, 30, 25, não sei, entendeu? Isso aí eu não acho legal. Ela é forte, mano. Ela é quebrada. Tem umas coisas na Lifeline que é quebrada. É que, assim como toda lenda, o pessoal pede buff, pede alguns buffs e a galera não sabe jogar.
Yeah, Ed, why don't you talk about these buildings?
Sure. So these are, I guess, government.
Agora, tem lendas que precisa ser nerfada.
They're
De
quite
verdade,
tanky,
tipo
I
assim,
guess,
tá-
to make it worthwhile for
tá
them to
ruim.
come all the way to the moon to give up their lives on
Até o Mirage, cara, tem uma paradinha que eu acho que ele devia tomar um nerf. Mas, enfim, eu Nunca comentei
from Tyr's lore trailer,
assiduamente.
Dominant African culture, so we kind of brought in a few influences to make it, you know, feel like there's some of that here as well.
A loba, ela podia muito pegar...
All the amenities needed to survive.
Ela não tem um suporte legal. A loba não tem, mano. Ela não é de suporte. Ela podia muito pegar o banner dos aliados. Mas os caras não querem dar isso pra ela. Ela ia engajar muito no meta, cara. Nossa, ia ser top demais. Não entendo. Não entendo.
Yeah, so this is the other variation. It's a little larger. These are really, really fun to defend because they have these like posts here, these kind of post-up points on the edges here.
Eu não digo que a Lifeline é a melhor boneca, mas assim, mano, ela tá no top 5 meu fácil. Fácil.
One of the fun things about this is actually just if you come
Qual a chance da Supremo do Mirage voltar a ser como antes?
You can get a good like momentum slide.
Ah, cara, acho que zero, né, mano? Acho que não volta, não. Na verdade, assim, vai ter uma playlist um dia, os caras já falaram já, que eles vão trazer o Apex Season 0, tipo, tudo vai voltar como era antes, entendeu? Vai ser um modo de jogo. Vão ser pouquíssimas lendas, se eu não me engano. 8 lendas, né, no total. E vai ser exatamente como era antes. É uma playlist que eles já... É um modo de jogo que eles querem trazer. Cara, esses ovos, eles são um easter egg, sim. Eu acho que é easter egg, mas pouca informação. Vou falar a verdade, cara. Pra um mapa que nem lançou ainda, a gente já tá com tanto conteúdo, tanta informação. Tá top. Ó, isso aqui é foda. Isso aqui eu achei... Isso aqui é de pagar pau, mano. Volta aqui. Quer ver?
Mentioned this in a few interviews. So one of the strongest themes was
olha essa planta aí, que da hora. Que bagulho ferrado. Qualidade tá uma merda.
For this one, we were going to be on a barren moon, and we wanted to contrast that with the lush terraformed areas. So Heaven and Hell was kind of the motif that was.
O Wraith Season 0 era extremamente quebrado, era mesmo, mano.
Especially the
a Wraith era foda.
Lush side was, you know, inspired by English gardens and Monet paintings, like that soft pastel sky. And
não é planta, é um fungo. Não sei, mano, não sou biólogo.
These giant lily pads and really lush flowers. So that really wanted to contrast against what we knew was going to...
Sonhos. Quando eu estava quase desistindo dos meus, encontrei uma forma deles irem mais longe. E agora, junto da nossa tribo, nós vamos mudar ainda mais. Empurrar todas as outras tribos a irem cada vez mais longe. Isso muda o game.
Ei, já sentiu que a vida até parece um...
Twitch é ridícula, cara. Um monte de propaganda.
You know, relate to the areas that they're going to be playing in for a long period of time,
right?
You spend hours in this. You don't want them to get tired or, you know, fatigued by too much of a gray ambiance. So we do have some of that moon vibe, but then we contrasted that with more of an earthly, terraformed half of the moon.
In the middle here, the honeypot, as we call it, so like the best loot's going to be here in the top middle.
É, de novo é uma bomba que não era pra ter rolado, porque eu fui jogar de Lifeline, o cara pegou Lifeline e eu não vi. Aí fui de Bloodhound. Eu não jogo bem de Bloodhound, mano. Eu acho ele muito lento pra... É o que eu te falei, mano. Eu gosto de lenda que tem habilidade rápida, que o cooldown é muito rápido, tá ligado? É meu estilo. No Bell 3 eu jogava assim também. Eu jogava com o Prophet, eu jogava com o Spectre. O Spectre era muito roubado, com aquele melee desgraçado dele. O melee dele era insta-kill, mano. E enchia toda hora, tipo...
kind of
A
hold
cada
up in here.
40 segundos enchia
Tricky
o melee
spots
dele.
to get people out of. The other thing that's really unique about this point of interest
A
is,
battery também era OP pra cacete.
so you'll see this like blue.
Eu tenho certeza que a Bangalore do Apex foi inspirada na battery do BL3, mano. Certeza, certeza.
Use that to,
Certeza.
to escape, to enter, you know, you can use it to just kind of
Você
like
viu
rotate
que vão
around the
nerfar a
POI if you want,
Horizon?
but
Quem
it
te
does
disse
put you at
isso?
a disadvantage, and you are a bit of a sitting duck. So similar mechanic to what you guys might have seen on World's Edge with the updraft, but this one doesn't damage you, and so you'll see that this mechanic across the map in a few spots, this blue glow. Anytime you see a spot like that, that'll actually lift you in the air. So we put.
Pô, galera, que a gente já viu, né?
Facing each other with bridges in the middle, and then there
Acho
is
que dá pra
a
gente
zip
encerrar a
line
live
connection that loops around. So
e esperar por amanhã.
a quick flank
O lançamento de amanhã da nova temporada. Lembrando que a partir do meio-dia já vou estar em live com vocês pra gente conferir. Quero testar a lenda nova. Infelizmente não tivemos muitas mudanças no meta de habilidade e das lendas, né? Mas de gameplay teve bastante coisa. De armas teve bastante mudança. Tô muito curioso pra ver como que a RE45 vai ficar. Mostra os ovos. E é isso aí. Pô, vamos encerrar por hoje pra eu poder descansar. Só hoje foi 3 vídeos e uma live, mano. Aliás, 2 vídeos e uma live. Ficar bem descansado pra amanhã. Beleza? Pô, galera, queria agradecer demais quem colou aí na live, mano. Quem conferiu o showcase do novo mapa. Vocês são top demais. Obrigado mesmo. Lembrando que amanhã, cara, meio-dia, já vamos estar todo mundo aí. Chama todo mundo pra gente poder jogar junto e conferir as novidades do novo mapa. Maravilha? See you. Bye bye. Thanks.